for example, American schools will consider a school counselor as having a degree plus this, plus that, plus that. Now, if you want to be an ed psych in an American school, you have to have your doctorate. So if you want to be a counselor, they can consider an undergrad, which is where your counselor qualification comes from. And then you have to heavily motivate with experience, right? So there are roles, but there has to be like very solid motivation that this is my experience. I have exposure to schools, and this is, my understanding of schools and those kind of things.
Okay.
So salaries are your very typical, you get what you ask for, right? What is your bargaining power? What is your leverage? So if I come and I say that I'm Arabic speaking, I work with children, I've had X number of years within the Arabic context, within the Arab context, and this is what I'm bargaining for, this amount. And then the company will come back and say, oh, but we are offering this amount because it's tax-free. And then you say, oh, but this, but that, but that. But generally, the salaries are slightly higher than what you get in South Africa.
Friends, I welcome you and thank you for joining us. I'm very much excited. If we're in sports, we'll say we're doing an international interview. So I've got a very special guest all the way from Kuwait, and she's going to share with us the journey of an EP from SA to practicing at Kuwait, Middle East. Let me welcome here. Linda, welcome. I just want to give you opportunity just to give us a bit of a background. Who's Linda? For those who don't know you, I'm sure you'll be known by those who've been at UP and some of the schools around where you worked. But just a quick background. Welcome, and just give us a quick background who Linda is. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. T. So I'm an educational psychologist by training, and like you said, I trained at UP. And part of the thing that the journey into training as an educational psychologist, I first was registered as a psychometrist and then trained into an EP and then started practicing as an EP. I am Zimbabwean by origin, but I did all of my education, my post-school education in South Africa, and registered as a psychologist within South Africa. So all of my training and context and experience as a psychologist has been South African based until I started diversifying and going to other places. So currently I'm based in Kuwait, working at a clinic as an educational psychologist, and just expanding my training and expanding my experience at a different level in a different context. Yeah.
Awesome. Short and sweet. Yeah. I'll go back to that. I'm sure many will be interested to hear about an EP at working at the clinic. EP, by the way, is educational psychology. For those who don't know, I had to work in a not even at a private practice, in psycholegal, when I realized this EP is very common. It was not so common when I was at UP. I'm like, oh, am I an EP? Oh, okay, that's me.
Because there's an IP, there's an EP,
I had to learn. I think it comes from government. Government was big on these terms. You start to hear all these terms. But yeah, for those who are watching EPs at Psych, Educational Psychology, that's what Linda did. I didn't know you did psychometry. Where did you do it?
So my first degree was with UNISA, And then I
Okay.
did psychometry and registered as a psychometrist. Then when I was accepted for a master's, then I went into training for EP. Yeah.
So did you do your psychometry with UNISA?
With UNISA, yes. So the idea was to become a psychologist, but then, of course, with the stringent entry requirements, and also just to at least start earning something and at
Yeah.
least start using your qualification. So I went with psychometry. I did the practicum, and then I started working as a psychometrist. So by the time I qualified and worked and studied, I was already a qualified psychometrist and working as a psychometrist for most of the time.
So which year was it? Because I think it must have been some way back, ne?
Yes,
Because I know they
2010.
didn't have psychometry. 2010.
2010.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
okay. Because now they reintroduced it. They didn't have it for some time. Now they
right,
brought
right.
psychometry back. Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Mhm.
Interesting, interesting. Okay, so you did your master's in ed psych at UP,
Right.
and just take me through your journey in terms of your employment
Mm.
prior to moving to Kuwait. Where did you work, and what then informed the move? Because last time I
Mm.
knew you were in Pretoria, and boo, you are now on the other
Gone.
side of the world.
All right. So, like I mentioned, I was a registered psychometrist. When I started studying at UP, I was working at a school, but more as like a screening specialist at a primary school in Sunnyside, and I was working with an organization that did work in different schools. So it had about 4 or 5 schools. The one in Sunnyside was one of the English schools serving. So I was working with that school while I was studying towards my degree. By the time I completed my degree, I had landed a job at Saibono, which is the science center in Joburg, and it has a career center called BHP Billiton Career Center. And I was the lead psychometrist there, and I was overseeing students that were coming from UJ to do their practicum at the center. So when I qualified as an ed psych, I was in the position of a psychometrist, and I applied for the role to now run the department. And I was not successful in getting that role because there was concerns about, you haven't practiced long enough as an ed psych. So I then resigned from that role about 6 months after qualifying as a ed psych, because I now needed to start building a portfolio as an educational psychologist. I had a portfolio as a psychometrist, but now I needed to build a portfolio as a psychologist. And I went and joined a private practice that was doing medical legal work. Very insightful, very challenging. And I think previously when I worked in a primary school, I used to find it very difficult to separate issues. I want to take every child home with me. They've got difficult circumstances. This was even more challenging because somebody has been in a road accident or somebody has suffered because of neglect in a hospital system, and you just want to make their lives better. So I found it very difficult to separate matters like in that context. So that was one of the biggest learning curves for me. Like, we just need you to assess. There's no other intervention you're going to do. You see them once and then you write a report and they're gone. That was tough. There's no follow-up, there's no intervention. You don't check if they ever access service. So that was really difficult. I worked in
Yeah.
that context until I they downsized. I think there was a time something happened with the road accident fund, and people downsized their practices and those kind of
They stopped
things.
paying us.
Yes, yes. So they downsized a whole lot.
Yeah.
But I was still able to consult here and there. Then I went through a time of just that consulting, but in the time of consulting, the restriction was that because I'm of a nationality I'm non-South African, I cannot register with the Board of Healthcare Funders. So that means if I open a private practice, it has to be a cash practice. And that means I
Okay.
bill people, then they go and claim back from medical aid, and that whole system, not everybody has the patience to do that.
Yeah.
So it was very difficult to go into private practice. So I ventured into online work.
I
And I
wasn't
found my
aware that if you
mm,
are not, if you are a non-South African, you can't register with BHF. I wasn't aware of that.
you cannot. You
Is
you
it?
will, yeah.
Wow. I wasn't aware.
So they I'm not sure if they introduced the rule fairly recently, but you
I
can
checked.
it's
Yeah.
restricted to
Is
South
it?
Africans. So that means your billing and everything. So people cannot claim for medical aid when they see you. It has to be a cash practice, and you run everything. So your invoicing systems also have to comply a lot with like so many different standards. BHF kind of aligns you and gives you
Yes,
a
yes.
system
Yeah.
that says
Yeah.
this is how you're billing. So if you're in
Yeah.
private practice and you don't have BHF, the billing system is all over the place for
Yeah.
you,
You work
right?
like this wellness counselors, all these non-registered
Right.
professionals in
Yes.
non-statutory bodies. Yeah.
Mm. And you can't bill what you are worth. And
Yeah.
this medical aid wants it like this. So you then do that invoice and that version. And it's a nightmare when you do your taxes. So that was really, really hard. And then I ventured into online work. I found a role with a university in Rwanda, which was Africa Leadership University. So I was a student counselor, uh, remote based. Um, it worked fairly okay. It was an amazing learning experience because when you go into the context of seeing Rwanda physically and understanding their history and how that history is presenting right now, you
Mm.
understand intergenerational trauma, you understand so many different things and how learning disabilities look like when there's layers of trauma, when you're dealing with students that come from refugee camps, when you're dealing with people that are still processing a trauma from, for us, it's 28, 29, 30 years ago, but for them, it is still, there are people who you can't take demography. When you take the history and you ask them about their parents, they literally do not know their parents because at the
Sure.
end of the genocide, they were children in the streets, and you pick up a child and you start raising a child. They don't know their parents, they don't
Yeah.
know their yes. So it was understanding that context and learning to see that you have to work blindly. There might not be a history, they might not be, it's a lot of things, it's a lot of layers of different things. So that was very enlightening. So before during my consultancy, I also worked with the Oprah Winfrey School in South Africa, and just seeing how the students come from this really difficult context, and then they come into this space of their psychology team at OLAG is very trauma informed. It's amazing. So their training understands that this is what learning looks like if you've got trauma in your life, right? So that
Mm.
gave me sort of like basis to kind of start looking at the Rwanda situation very differently. So that was another couple of years doing that online work, which was very enlightening because it's got a Mauritius campus, which is a totally different demographic again. And remember,
Mm.
within these universities, there's also international students. There's also students from all over Africa. So you've got such a diverse palette that you're working with. And I think that was another eye-opening experience. And I then ventured into working with the UCT Online High School as a
Okay.
student counselor. And that period was also very challenging because this is a very new concept in South Africa. This is now I was a team lead. How do I keep my team accountable online? How do I make sure that there's follow up for a child? What do we do when there's a crisis? What happens with Childline? What are their processes? So having that understanding and having a way to assess for intellectual difficulties, for learning difficulties, to give concessions and accommodations for online learning. What does that look like? How do you profile it, and how do you ask the school for accommodations? What are the rules about accommodations for online schools? All of those things. So it's been a journey.
I can hear. I wasn't even aware that you went to Oprah Winfrey School and UCT Online. UCT Online, I thought it's new. When did you leave? I thought you left some time ago.
Yes, but no, it's only been what, a year odd, maybe, yeah. UCT has been, I think this is their third year running, because initially they were running online school for there's a school that's in Joburg somewhere, but they were initially running it for that school, St. Stephen's. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I think I started to hear about them after COVID.
Yes. So St. Stephen's was pre that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Oprah, I know a gentleman actually from UP. I don't know if you didn't attend with him, but he was at Oprah actually about 3 to 4 years ago. I supervised his internship. I don't know if you're together there. Denny.
What's his name?
Denny.
No, I didn't meet Denny, no.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's been a journey.
So just a quick question regarding the Rwanda remote work. So were you in South Africa when you got the job?
Yes, I was still in South Africa. I would travel to Rwanda. They didn't need me to be on campus, but because also their learning model is that for the first 6 months you're on campus, and then after that you go online. So their learning model is online anyway. So just for me, I was very puzzled by some of the cases that we're presenting. And I said, I just need to see the context. I need to see physically what's going on. And that visit just gave me absolute insight into the people that switch on the screen are not sitting, they are coming from somewhere, and understanding that history. Yeah.
I hear you. Look, I think there's a lot I didn't even know. I thought you left Sunnyside and went to Kuwait.
Oh,
I didn't know about all this, Jade.
These chapters in between, right?
Wow. Okay, so you were then at UCT, and at what point did you then start to consider relocating, and what informed that decision?
Okay, so things when you work within a certain context, so like I'm saying, Rwanda was very eye-opening. You start to understand things in a different way. It felt like in South Africa there were things that I was doing on autopilot. You hear this and then you kind of make the dots and you're like, oh, okay, then it has to be this, it has to be that. When you hear, for example, that a child was raised by their grandmother, it's kind of standard. It's like, oh, okay, these situations where the mother leaves the child in the rural areas, comes and works in the city, and then this is what the dynamics of this context looks like. You about clients, there are things you start to not always empathize very well. There are things that you kind of run on autopilot, and it starts to get tiring. It starts to get draining. It starts to feel like you're not growing. So you keep going for all these training activities. You keep pursuing this and pursuing that. And I considered doing my PhD, and I kind of knew that wasn't going to solve my problem, because then what I needed was challenge. What I needed was to kind of be kicked out of the nest. So my curiosity has always been, before we called it a learning disability, what did our indigenous system call it? Right? What did our indigenous system refer to our mental health as? What did they call the child who's left-handed? Why was it such a taboo that your child is left-handed and now it doesn't matter? All those kind of things. So I looked for opportunities I looked for Asia, I looked for Eastern Europe, Russia, those kind of countries that are not necessarily English speaking. I'm very curious about the more diverse spaces, and then the Middle East. So I got a breakthrough in the Middle East, and then I took it up.
So you were intentional about looking for a job out there, not that somebody informed you and you started to search. You just decided, I want a new challenge, new experience. You started to search for a job.
I started to search for a job, but also the way you profile your LinkedIn profile also starts to bring certain opportunities your way, right? If you list your interest in a certain way, so if I say diverse backgrounds, or I've worked with this, I've worked with that, then the algorithm runs such that when a job ad is looking for that profile, it kind of comes your way. So that's kind of like how the opportunities came my way. And I think the Asia one was Singapore, which was very interesting, but nah, it didn't come through.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, very interesting. And I want to get more information now about the process then. So you see an advert, and I just want you to take me through it for those who might be interested. You see an advert for, I assume they wanted a psychologist, an EP perhaps. And what's the process? What do you then do? Because you are registered here and they've got their own requirements. Just take me through the journey until you get into a flight.
Okay.
Hi friends, just a quick break. I know you're enjoying this program, but I just want to answer some few questions about people who still want guidance on how to access the book. You know what I usually recommend, that make sure that you get an ebook. An ebook, you can get it on Amazon and follow their process. Just click on the link below this video and then follow their process and you'll be able to get the book. I like the ebook process with Amazon because it is instant. You buy the book, you get it immediately on your gadget. But if you are in South Africa and you want to get a hard copy posted directly to your home address without leaving your house, all you have to do, there's a link below this video from our printers who were kind enough to help us with distributing the book. All you have to do, click on the link, fill the form, and they will be able to communicate with you on how to get the book. Usually it takes about 72 hours to get the book to you, and many people have been getting their book, so don't be left behind. See the links below this video on how to get the books, whether on Amazon or for it to be posted to your home address. So don't waste any time. Many people are getting the book, so don't remain behind. Make sure you get your copy while there is still time. Don't wait for the last minute, because the book will actually share with you on how to also prepare for the application, what you have to do, tips that are necessary even before the selection process starts. So make sure that you get the book as quick as possible. Let's go back and enjoy the program.
So when the advert came through, I did my usual LinkedIn profile application, and then after that, the company recruiter then sent me a link to actually like put together a pack. And the application pack included all the different requirements that are needed for you to be able to eventually get a visa, to eventually be with the company, and all those kind of things. So
okay, sorry, Linda. So what was the advert through an agency? Was it
no, it was on LinkedIn.
It was on LinkedIn.
Yeah. So I
But when
did
you
my
apply,
my LinkedIn application, and then when the
okay.
company gets it, the company then sends you a direct link to their
Oh, I see.
internal
Okay.
process, right?
Oh, I see. Okay.
So that meant setting up interviews, introduction interviews, and just getting an understanding, meeting the panel of interviewers, the whole process, right? Interview process was very interesting because the panel was very diverse, right? So I think one of the people on the team was sitting in the US. One of the people on the team, I think two of them were sitting in the Kuwait office, but then of the two, one was Arab descent, the other one was Eastern Europe descent. And then, so just from that outlook, you can then understand, okay, this is possibly a very diverse kind of workplace. How do I answer a question about psychology that covers 3 different people of descent? Is there a common understanding of when I say assessments? Is there a common understanding of when I say this, when I say that? So to answer your question, the things that they ask for, Kuwait is significantly challenging because then they want a high school diploma. I don't even remember where that was. Like, I phoned my mother and she was like, "What? Do you know how old you are?" And I looked for it. I couldn't find it. So that meant going back to Zimbabwe, to my high school, and like retracing the steps. So they want things like a high school diploma. They want things like your what was that thing that they wanted that was so difficult? Like all these tests that they do, the medical tests, they are with specific doctors, they are for specific things, and it feels tedious.
Yeah, I remember someone said they wanted, it was Clio, I think they wanted study module outcomes just to see what they covered.
Yes.
Sure.
They want all of that, and they want things like, so your every qualification that you have. So remember, I went to school in Zimbabwe and then I studied in South Africa, and then they want something that comes from the ministry. So that is DIRCO. DIRCO then does all these certifications, and then you've got to mail all of those things. And for the DIRCO certifications, they've got their own list of requirements. Like every degree, you have to go to this place and certify, and then track it back to say that, oh, University of Pretoria is listed as an Afrikaans university. So I have to go and get a letter that says that I did my program in English, and then submit that letter, and then. So it was a lot of runaround. After the South African process was done, I then had to go to Zimbabwe to look for my high school diploma. And then there's police clearance for every country you've lived in since you were 18. Yes. Police clearance in Zimbabwe, if you're going to the Middle East, has to be cleared by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, has to check that you have a legit employer because of history of people have been trafficked and all those kind of things. So the Department of Foreign Affairs has to phone, check that the employer is registered, check that this is a legit position, check that this offer letter is legit, and then give you a police clearance. Wow. Then once that is done, so by the time
you'll end up being rejecting the job before you even start.
That's what it felt like. It really felt like, what is this even worth it? Yeah. So
so the whole process then, how long does it take? And when you start all that, you already have an acceptance letter for the job.
Yes, you have an offer letter. So, for example, my case was particularly difficult because they waited with the offer for almost a year, because it was just after COVID, and it was there were still all these restrictions with the Department of International Relations. There was so many things going on.
Yeah.
So you had to courier it and then send a self-registered envelope and then back and forth, back and forth. So remember, in this time, I'm unemployed. I'm working on gigs that come and go, So you are also very eager to go, and they are also eager to have you.
Yeah, and it's a very
But they
frustrating
know,
state to find it. Yeah.
they know that the fact that they ask for this many documents means that there's a huge delay. So it's quite common that you hear people, so and so will be joining the team, so and so will be joining the team. When they finally join the team, you're like, oh, great, now you are here. Yeah. So they do know. They do know. Their process is quite ridiculous. Yeah.
So if you were to recall or just try to remember back, at what point did you get the offer, and when did you eventually have all the documents to depart? Around what time, what month or so?
I think it took me almost 7 months to just get everything together. Yeah.
Wow.
And just getting everything together means that I've gone back and forth to and from Zimbabwe. I have gone back and forth in terms of within South Africa, because then it's no longer the Ministry of Education that must certify that your degree is legit. It's now these guys, and now I've even forgot what they're called. But it's all those little tiny steps back and forth that you're kind of like, and you're walking around with a folder this big, and people look at you like you're mad. Then
like somebody legal profession.
Then your police clearance expires. Then you've got to apply for a new one. Then because this one is now expired, then you apply for a new one. So yeah, I think 7 to 8 months was the amount of time that it took for everything to finally come together.
Okay. Wow. And so you do all that. Do they pay for the flight, or you have to make those arrangements yourself?
Right. So this is where your negotiation starts. Right. So
Okay.
after having that exposure with Rwanda, I now knew what to bargain. Right. I now knew. Right. So, for example,
these are the tips we need. You need to give us all these tips, because we will have now paid for flight here while
and
we
it's
must
not
exercise
cheap,
our.
It's not
No, I can
cheap.
imagine. I mean, Kuwait, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
yeah, continue.
I negotiated for a package that includes relocation and includes flights, includes certain things like, I want to be able to come home. How much time do I get off? Is that one trip per year allowed? Is it so? The company, there's standard things that international roles offer you, and then the other stuff you kind of like have to push extra for it, and just
Okay. Maybe just for clarity. So when they gave you the offer, that's when all those negotiations started, prior to you finalizing all or starting with the document process.
I started with the document process after I was holding an offer, because I'm not going to do all of that run around and then be told, oh, but we found somebody else. So if I have an offer, I have grounds for,
No, I mean, like the issue about the flight and all the things were part of the offer that was given. Okay. And what guarantees that offer will remain until you finish with all the documents for 7 months or whatever duration it will take? Is it that included as a clause on the offer?
Not particularly. Some companies will say, we're going to wait for you until this long. So I was very intentional about keeping them updated. giving them the links. This is the department I'm now dealing with. I've done this stage, and then now they've informed me that I also have to do this. And here's a link to the document that they are referencing and all those kind of things. So if you keep them updated, that like you're not just hanging around and chilling and waiting, but you're actually actively doing something. This is the 4-week wait. This is, and I can't move on to the next stage until this one is done. And then when this one is done, I'm going to do this. So that constant communication was critical.
Awesome. So you speak about the negotiation. So for somebody who has not worked overseas and it will be their first time, you mentioned negotiating the issue of leave combined with flights. If they're going to cover that, and how many will they cover?
Right.
Probably they won't cover all your trips home. What else should one consider in terms of the negotiations?
Okay, so I've never been to Kuwait. I don't know anyone who lives there. I don't know what it looks like. So where am I going to live? I'm not going to start searching for accommodation, because even if they tell me Pretoria, I don't know what Pretoria looks like. I don't know what is the fair rate to pay. I don't know what it looks like. Maybe I don't want to live there. Right. So they will give you, so some companies will say, we'll put you up in a hotel for 3 weeks. And in those 3 weeks, you can get familiar and you can have a look around and look at accommodation. So they have an option of staff accommodation. Okay. This is what, and I asked, what does the staff accommodation look like? It looks like this. They sent me videos. They sent me links to what is included in the staff accommodation. Okay, so if I'm staying on staff accommodation, is that a benefit of my salary, or it's not a benefit of my salary? Or I can take the money that you allocate for housing and then find my own place outside, and think it through in the sense that if you're looking for accommodation for yourself, you're unfamiliar with this area. By the time you get on the ground, you find that traffic is horrible in where you're going to be, where you've chosen to live, or you're not allowed to drive. So, for example, driving is a big deal here. Like, I don't drive here. I'm licensed, but then I cannot get a local license. So there's rules that are local that you're not aware of when you're still out there. So I took the safest possible option. I said I'll take staff accommodation. There will be transport available to and from the office. It's fine, right? You know, nobody likes it. Nobody wants to be in it. So I'll take it. And then when I settle in, if I don't like it, if I feel like changing, then I can see it from there. So what are my options, right? So whatever they offer you, always ask yourself, what are my options? So if I commit to staff housing, am I bound to it for the rest of my contract, or I have an option to leave? What are my restrictions about this? So for example, if you are relocating with a partner and you're not married, right? And you try to sign a lease agreement in Kuwait, they're not going to allow you that. You have to produce a marriage certificate. Why are you opposite gender and living together? This living in is not allowed. These kind of situations. So you're unfamiliar with a lot of rules on the ground. So what are your options? What can you do? How much research and ask the people that are offering you these things. They can help you. They can give you guidance. They can give you insight, you know, and then that's how it worked out for me.
I hear you. I hear you. No, that's great, man. I think that's very helpful. And so you did that, you finished everything, and you got there. So how was it, the process of settling in now, introduction to a work environment? How was it different from SA? I mean, you are used to being in a school or education setting. You mentioned the clinic. What are the differences, if you had to give somebody an idea, and also the work context in terms of what kind of problems do you work with when you get there?
Okay, so one thing that I had to reposition my mind about was that this is a context that I know nothing about. I need to be showing up and willing to learn, right? So no matter how much psychology I know, no matter how much theories I know, I have never worked in the Arab context with an Arab population before. So I am starting from ground zero, right? Whether it's language, etiquette, how do you dress? So the clinic does give you a heads up, types of dressing, and because when you're working with small kids, they'll tell you even things like you can't wear a strong fragrance because we've got kids that have allergies. We've got kids that are, it's a clinic. There are some kids who have health conditions, so they kind of give you like a orientation of some sort, right? What is allowed in Kuwait, what's not allowed in Kuwait. So for example, Kuwait is a dry country. You're not allowed to have alcohol at all. So you can't be
Like have
buying.
it what? Like have it what? Like as in not, you can have it in your room.
No. Shops don't sell alcohol. You cannot bring it into the country. So for example, if you go to
Oh,
your
there's no
embassy,
alcohol in the country.
yes, it is dry
Wow.
country. Yes. So if
Wow.
you pass by Dubai and you say, "Oh, I found a nice gin and tonic that I like," you buy it. It's
Wow.
deportation. Like you get deported before you even get into the country. So things like that. It's a
Sure.
Muslim country. There's restrictions on pork products. There's restrictions on this. There's restrictions on that. So you have a fair idea, but also you have a lot of bias. Oh my goodness, a lot of bias because we think Muslim country, we think this, we think that, we think that. So
Yeah,
you,
you are hiding your face when you dress. I thought I'll find you with those things.
but when you have lived here, you understand why they wear those dresses. It's
Okay.
hot. It is hot, and those dresses just make sense. Like
Is it? I thought they
you
make it
just
worse.
no, no. This our jeans and our tight clothes, they make it worse. Like you will be here
Wow.
looking for the loose clothes because you need those kind of clothes, right?
Is
So
it?
yeah, it's a shift in mindset and understanding a lot of things, a lot of biases that I had. Like, when we are in a non-Muslim country, we are wondering, oh my goodness, why do they even have to wash before they go into their temple and all those things? In a practical sense, for hygiene purposes, if we're going to be kneeling down and I'm next to your feet, my face is next to your feet, we've been out in the sun, it's hot outside. Please wash your feet and just come in clean. Just wash your feet and your face and it's hygiene. There's nothing mythical about it. There's nothing,
It's your practical
ooh,
reason.
it's practical. It's just practical. Do you understand?
Sure.
So there's a lot of biases. In this, I came in a month that was like, I'm supposed to be partying in South Africa. I'm supposed to be having a December vibe.
Yeah.
And here I am, Christmas Day. Here are your clients. Full assessment, business as
What?
usual. Yeah, because this is not Christian country. This is Muslim country. You know.
So you work throughout December?
Yeah. It,
Wow.
yeah. It's not Christmas is not recognized here. It's no. It's just not.
Wow. Wow.
If you
Wow.
observe it, you observe it in your house, but you must come to work tomorrow.
Oh,
So those learning
interesting.
curves, yeah.
So, so tell me, so when you arrive there, so they arrange everything, transport from the airport to the staff, play accommodation. How was it then to be integrated into the whole system? Because you speak about a clinic. I would have
Mhm.
thought, I mean, clinic is typical for your clinical psychologist, other fields, but not at site.
Mm.
Why clinic in particular? Is it common for
So
EPs to work there, or is it
it's
just one of the places where they do?
It's one of the places. So the structure of the clinic is that it's a multidisciplinary team. So there's clinical psychs, there's ed psych, there is speech language, there's OTs, there's pediatric physio, there's so many different specialists within the clinic. So we partner with schools, right?
So is it a pediatric clinic?
No, it's a clinic that
Okay.
sees adults, right, from children right through to adults. I think the youngest we see is about 3 years of age. 3 years of age we've got. And then we've got ABA, which is like applied behavior analysts. We've got so now there's a little school that's starting, but it's not a formal school, but it's like a type of school for kids with special needs, and it's very small scale and everything like that. So it's a multidiscipline context. Now the idea is that when we offer a solution, when we go to a school, we offer a solution that says we've got someone here who can assess and look at learning and learning difficulties. And then we've got someone here who can do the OT. We've got someone here who can look at speech. We've got someone who can look at behavior. We've got someone who can look at this and look at that and look at that and look at that. So many different specialties, right? So you get quite a lot of exposure to how other disciplines work and how they link into ed psych. So for example, if I have a client that's cross-referral with the pediatric guys, it means that my plan has to coincide with what they are working on and has to coincide with the school. So now you're not just EP, you are thinking EP with this, with that, with that. So
In a
you kind of learn
multidisciplinary
to,
context.
yes, you now learn to plug into very different ways of working.
So is the place, your workplace, more like is it a private clinic that service schools in terms of having contract with them, or
Yeah.
are this partnership with different educational institutions?
It's a private clinic that serves schools, and it
I
serves
see.
hospitals, it serves private clients, people that just need so it covers quite a lot. For the adults, there's speech, there's physio, there's what do you call it, neuro rehabilitation, there's quite a huge service offering that's like very diverse. So just in my department, I am with the schools and training teachers and staff in schools. There are schools that will come and request and say, yeah, we know we've been trained on how to work with ADHD kids, but we need practical stuff. Like when the teacher is controlling a classroom, what do I do with the ADHD child and the child who has slow processing speed and the child who is this with this? And I need to conduct this one classroom with children functioning here and children functioning here. So you now have to rethink your entire degree. Like, what was I doing this whole time?
No, I get that. I think it's more
Yeah,
application of what we have
right.
learned.
Yeah.
It's all these assignments we did that we never used. Now they so
Yeah.
can you just take me through what's your typical day like as an EP within that work context? And does it
Okay.
vary each day, or is it the same things on a weekly basis?
Okay.
And
So
how often do you work? I mean, I think that's very
Hmm.
interesting. I've
So
never heard of this.
I'm lucky to have a role that has 5 days working and then 2 day weekend. We take it for granted, but that's not always standard. So my role has 2 days off, which means I do have a weekend. I work from Saturday until Wednesday because here the weekend is Friday, Saturday, right? Friday is the prayer day, and then Saturday is kind of like the other day of the weekend. So there's parents that don't want to disrupt their kids in school. They want to bring them in to see me So I'm available on a Saturday, right? All my bookings are done by the admin team.
So Sunday you are working?
Yes, Sunday is actually the first day of the week here.
Okay.
So everyone else works Sunday.
The normal
to Thursday.
first day of the week.
Yes, Sunday to Thursday is the normal working week, and then I work Saturday to Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you work Saturday to Wednesday, and Thursday and Friday you are off.
Yes. School is Sunday to Thursday.
Oh, school is Sunday to Thursday.
Sunday to Thursday, yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. So because their prayer day is Friday, remember? So yeah.
Okay.
Thursday. So the weekend is Friday, Saturday for everyone else.
Okay.
All my bookings are handled by the admin team. And then I have a working schedule that I open every day. I see how many clients I'm seeing at what times. I do assessments, I do therapy sessions, I do school visits, and I also do on at least once a week, I meet with the multidisciplinary team, right? To discuss the shared cases, to cross-refer, to just get context. At least once a week, we have what we refer to like a case discussion, like a group supervision. Someone brings up a case, we talk through it, we work through it, and then, you learn so much. Sorry?
I'm saying, like in a hospital, you are a proper EP in the multidisciplinary.
So every time you show up to a meeting, you have to kind of position yourself. If I'm listening to a case in a discussion session with my colleagues, so if I sit in a session for mental health and wellness, and they're discussing a case of personality disorder, right? I have to position and think, if I'm seeing a child whose parent is like this, how does the society deal with it? What does it look like on a day-to-day? If a person is on medication, do they have access to the medication? What happens when they don't have access to medication? All those kind of things, right? So I have to always position myself as an EP in that context. If this person we're talking about is a teacher in a school, what does that look like? And I'm phoning and asking them to support my student, and what will that look like? So consistently, like, positioning yourself and understanding cases from very diverse new approaches that you've never heard of before, going and researching. So the whole time you're just writing, it's research this one and then research that one. So it's always a learning curve, always.
I can imagine from what I'm hearing. And I forgot to ask you this. When you arrived there, did you have to register with the psychology professional board or body that they have?
So you have to have an active licensing with. Okay, the way it works. Okay, let me backtrack. Depending on where you're going, right? Depending if you're going into a clinic or into a school or into a hospital, each type of establishment falls under a different ministry. So, for example, my clinic unit that recruited me falls under a department that does not require me to register locally, right?
Okay.
It will accept my registration from wherever. There are companies there are departments that require registration from the UAE, right? There are companies, so to be Middle East exposure somewhere, somehow, like a bar. There are ministries that require registration from a European board because, for example, if it's psychiatry and the local standard, they follow psychiatry according to the European standards, not American standards. So you have to write a board exam for a European standard place. But for me, I was recruited by an organization that has my specific unit under a ministry that doesn't require local registration. I
Okay.
registered with a local organization for access to, conferences, things, the activities that they do within the region. It's called the Middle Eastern Psychology Association. So it covers countries in the Middle East, right?
Is that a non-statutory body or is it statutory, the one that you are mentioning?
Non-statutory.
Is it?
Right.
Okay.
In Kuwait,
Okay.
it's non-statutory, but in other
Is
countries,
it?
it is statutory. Yeah.
I see. I see. And what's happening now with your psychology registration fee? Do you renew them or you left them since you left?
So I maintain my HPCSA registration and I renew it
Okay.
every year. I have to comply with the usual standards of ethics, points, and all those kind of things. And then I tried to keep up my SISA one, but it's expensive to keep everything running and going. So basically, I have my HPCSA active. I need to maintain good registration and good standing, and that's
Get you. Okay.
enough. Yeah. Mm,
Okay. No, super then. So
mm.
just for somebody then who want to consider moving that side, what are the job opportunities? I'm just thinking you are at the clinic, but probably having been there for, you said you moved in 2022.
Do I even remember? Okay, I will remember.
Yeah,
I will
yeah.
think back
But
and
my
remember.
the point either way is that probably you are now exposed to the different job opportunities that people can get that side if they're interested. What are they, if you were to share what you've been exposed to?
So, Kuwait specifically has a lot of international schools. So, international schools being British system, American system, Canadian system, French system. So, there's international schools every other time, every other place. That are consistently looking for professionals, right? You look for opportunities to come and work in Kuwait. A lot of them will be schools. Difficulty with schools is that every school has its own rules. So, for example, whatever I just described in this session may not apply at all to the French school. The French school will say we need this and that and this and this and that, but there is definitely opportunities to come in and work with the schools. I wasn't keen to work with schools because I've had experience in schools. I haven't had experience in clinics. Clinics, again, it's very different. So if you land in a clinic that has designation, their license is under a ministry that needs to have so many other different registrations, you have to comply with that, and that might be a longer process for you. So there's a lot of variations on the ground in terms of, but they're very good with giving you someone to guide you and lead you and show you how it works and those kind of things. But there's definitely opportunities. Language, I was very hesitant because of language. If you're going into a school, it's useful to have the language. If you're in a clinic like I am, it's useful, but it's not critical, right? So in a school, for example, school kids, you're seeing school kids and they crack a joke and they talk about something in Arabic they just carry on, right? And you're just standing there, you don't understand anything. And you're a member of staff. You're supposed to have disciplined these kids. You're supposed to have stopped this bullying. And it happened in your face, but you don't understand Arabic. It's not an excuse. So you need if you're going into the school spaces, it's useful to have the language.
I hear you. I hear you. And you went there as an ed psych, and I'm wondering if you are still a psychometrist, and I'm asking that because we've got a lot of people now who are registered counselors, psychometrists, others only just have a degree. is there possibility to still get access to these opportunities with those kind of qualification?
You
Do you see
can.
posts aligned to that level of qualification?
Yes, because what happens is, remember, all the different schools are operating on different levels. So, for example, American schools will consider a school counselor as having a degree plus this, plus that, plus that. Now, if you want to be an ed psych in an American school, you have to have your doctorate, right? If you want to be a
Brilliant.
counselor, yes. So if you want to be a counselor, they can consider an undergrad, which is where your counselor qualification comes from, and then you have to heavily motivate with experience, right? So there are roles, but there has to be like very solid motivation that this is my experience. I have exposure to schools, and this is, my understanding of schools and those kind of things.
Okay. Okay. And so if you work there, I don't like asking this question, but my viewers like it about
Mhm,
salaries.
mhm.
So I want to find out, will it be, and I mean, I think you did mention, I know Kuwait has got a very, the conversion
Mm.
rate is high.
All right.
Uh, is the payment of psychology that side, how is it? Is it worth the travel, the up and down, going to them, coming back, compiling a file size document?
All right.
Uh, just in general, because I
In
saw some
general.
adverts for UK, which was pretty much what you will get here.
Mm,
And for me, I was like, oh, thinking of the weather, thinking of
mm.
relocation, how much is accommodation? And I'm like,
All
no,
right.
I can't go and be low class at UK.
Right.
You know? So if you're
Yeah.
to give somebody just a general picture of how
Mm,
to wrap their mind around salaries, how they work that side, if they want to consider relocating, what can you
mm.
share?
So, salaries are your very typical, you get what you ask for, right? What is your bargaining power? What is your leverage? So, if I come and I say that I'm Arabic speaking, I work with children, I've had X number of years within the Arabic context, within the Arab context, and um, this is what I'm bargaining for this amount. And then the company will come back and say, oh, but we are offering this amount because it's tax free. And then you say, oh, but this, but that, but that. But generally, the salaries are slightly higher than what you get in South Africa. Um, there is job security, right? But also a consistent understanding of, listen, it's a volatile region. Let's be open about it. It's a volatile region. Right now, there's Lebanon that is that there's the Israeli war that's going on. There's other things that are going on. So when you consider an opportunity to come to the Middle East, yes, it doesn't physically hit you that there is a war in the country that you're sitting in, but understand that you're working with colleagues that have family in those countries. You are holding space consistently for family, for people. My neighbor's kids went for summer. We are checking in. Are they safe? Have you found them? Have you spoken to your child? So there's other regional context things that you also have to be aware of. So when you're bargaining and leveraging and thinking about coming here, it's not just about a salary. You have to think that it is worth it for you, for yourself. I found it very funny because consistently, when you first go into social circles here, they're like, oh,
Mm.
hi, so you're still new to Kuwait. What are you running away from? Because it feels like people are running away from something at their home and they come here and, they're hiding from something. So it feels like that. People, it's, it's either it's a hit or a miss. Like it's either you
Yeah.
settle in and you take it up and you could run with it, or you're just like, no, not for me. It's not going to work for me.
Explain what you mean by job security.
Job
do they
security
give
is
you, yeah.
job security is, do you know how to work? Yes, I know how to work. What do you know about psychology? I know this, that. Okay, how would you approach this? So if you know how to work, you've got a job, right? South Africa is kind of like, oh, but what nationality are you? But, you know, we have to give this person preference over you, and then this person must, but we must also consider this. Here, you arrive, can you work? Yes, I can work. So come and work. That's it.
And so it's not about, you're not referring to they give you contract and I mean people are in that job for a long time or versus people who get like permanent and all that.
You get a permanent contract, right? Most of the time you get a permanent contract, and they kind of know that it's a hit or a miss because they give you like the probation period. There are lots of people who come here after 1-2 months, they're like, no, can't do it, I'm leaving, right? So they do know that that happens. It's in South Africa, it's kind of like we do it as a token, right? But here you actually can just say tomorrow, nope, I'm packing, I'm leaving, I can't do this, right? So they know. So job security is the contract is here, the work is here. Are you willing to work? Right. A lot of the time when you're still in South Africa, you'll be like, yeah, I'm willing to work. I'm willing to do it. But when you get here and understand that dry country means dry country. Dry country doesn't mean that, you know, I know a guy who knows a guy who can hook me up, because if they hook you up, then you are caught. You're being deported. You are driving traffic offense, you know, they can decide. So the rules are kind of like, tomorrow this is the rule, tomorrow that's not the rule. It changes, right?
Yeah.
You consistently know that I'm not here to retire here. I'm here to work. I'm here to, so there are people who've been here for years, for 10 years, for 20 years, they've been here. But consistently they know that they are not, you don't ever gain citizenship. It's either you're Kuwaiti or you're not Kuwaiti. That's it. These thing of coming here and thinking of an opportunity, I'll open my
Even by
own
marriage.
practice. It's a tough one. It's a really, like, I don't know what process you will have gone through. Because there's a lot culturally that happens. There's a lot in terms of their religion that happens for you to become a Kuwaiti. It's not. It doesn't work that way. If you decide to open a private practice, very strict conditions on operating businesses, on running a clinic. You have to have a Kuwaiti national who is a psychiatrist, and each. So there's so many restrictions that you are not here to kind of retire here, to buy properties and then accumulate your, no, it's not the place for that.
You can't do that.
You know, it's either you're Kuwaiti or you're not Kuwaiti. It's simple as that.
But and because you guys are neighbors to Dubai, eh?
Dubai is, so we are Kuwait, Iraq, Saudi.
Okay. You are Kuwait, but how far is Dubai from where you are?
It's an hour flight.
Okay.
You take an hour and a half flight. You go.
So it's Durban and Joburg.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
So if you're thinking of the region in a long-term context, you are not looking at Kuwait. You're maybe looking at the UAE, which is like Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and the other Emirates in there, of which they have their own restrictions, they have their own things. But places, Saudi is slowly opening up, but they are still quite the stronghold in terms of the religion, in terms of the culture. So it's not, Kuwait is open, but there's things that are not negotiable. It just doesn't make sense here to, it's my body, I dress how I like. No, you have to be modest, you have to cover yourself up. You can wear your ripped jeans, but we have the right to say that you cannot get into the mall looking like this, right?
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a region where you can consider coming for a certain period for very targeted and focused kind of, I need this exposure, I need this experience, and then we keep it moving. Yeah.
And so from your side, are you settled
Mm.
there, or are you looking at other opportunities in neighboring places? Where are you
I
at this
think
point, based on your
I think I
experience and
am.
what you know?
So I've had very interesting and challenging cases that I'm like, okay, this is very challenging. This is very interesting. This wants me. I really would want to learn more about this. I want to learn more about this. So consciously, for this time, at this point in time, I'm here, right? Intentionally, just to learn and understand as much as I can learn, as much as possible. Um, it's not a place that you will think of. You take it a day at a time, you take it a step at a time. But my intention is to learn, right? And to understand and to see how, a client improves just by being in a multidisciplinary care. Just to see how parents present a child, how a child plays. Even they play, like I do play therapy, I do sand trays, for example, something as simple as a sand tray. Completely different experience here.
Things I
Like,
don't like. You're mentioning things that I.
but if there's a language barrier, what do? You play. You play and you see how the play goes. So I have to constantly go back to colleagues and ask, you know, because if I have pigs in my play set, cultural appropriateness. I also have to look for play symbols that represent here. I have to look for camels. I have to look for animals that the kids know here. Yes, they see it on TV and whatsoever. Peppa Pig is on TV, but that a pig is a pig, right?
Mm.
So I can have Peppa Pig, but some kids won't touch Peppa Pig. And then there's it's so many
I
little other
get you.
things
I
that you're
get you.
consistently learning about. So for the foreseeable future, it's just learning.
I hear you.
That's where I
I hear
am.
you. And you mentioned something about a tax-free
Mm,
income. So when people are paid, their salaries come,
mm,
do they have deductions? Like, I mean, here, I mean, the standard, you'll have your retirement,
mm,
you'll have your medical aid,
mm,
yeah, you'll have your UIF. Do
mm.
they have that? What kind of deduction does one have to bear with beside the tax?
So depending on the package that you negotiated, some companies will give you full medical insurance. Some
Okay.
companies won't. Some companies will give you an annual ticket to go home, a return ticket. Some companies won't. Um, but no one is planning your retirement for you. Here's your money. You can spend it. You can do what you like. But remember, one day is one day. So
Yeah.
no one is doing that for you. I think, for example, if you have a company that has said we're giving you an allowance for housing, that will reflect on your salary certificate. And yeah, take your money. You can go. And you decide what
I
to
think
do
then
with it.
what makes the salary then is because there are no deduction for those retirement and whatever. But on
Right.
top of that, there's no tax deduction because I think
Yeah.
for us, beside that, then you've got tax.
Correct.
So you
Yeah.
guys, there's no tax deduction at all on your salary slip.
No. So we don't have any tax deduction. So for example, but one thing you have to be mindful of, wherever you're going to move your money to, wherever you're going to move your earnings to, you have to be conscious of the tax implications there. Right.
It's
So
fine.
if you're
What about that when in South Africa?
You'll be surprised. You'll go looking for that SARS book and be like, yeah, is this how much they take? So
Sure.
yeah, things like that. I mean, if there are people who consider investing in Dubai, because Dubai is open for investment, they will allow you to buy a property, they will allow you to invest, all sorts of different things. But at the same time, you know, are you going to retire in Dubai?
No, I hear you. I hear you. And so you have been there since whatever the duration. What advice would you give to somebody contemplating relocating? I mean, I know you've mentioned a lot of things, but what would you want them to consider before they decide on following a career in EP and Kuwait? And maybe let me add on that to say, beside Kuwait, and based on your knowledge, what other places would you recommend them to look at? Because I get a sense you might be exposed to different opportunities, but I think because you are settled on being in a learning season where you are and the opportunities that you have, what advice would you give them within that context?
Okay, so and tolerance. Tolerance is a big deal. Tolerance and openness to learning, right? And if you are considering it, right, a lot of people will say, "Oh no, I'll go there for the money." There are things that you have never been aware of that matter to you that start to show up when you are here. When you have the money, when you have access to it, and all those kind of things, there are things that make you thrive, right? So that awareness of, if I'm making this commitment, it's bigger than me. Okay. So yes, I want the money, but I'm going to be handling people's lives, right? I can't come here, start a process with a 3-year-old and leave, right? Because I heard there's a new opportunity over there. Because I heard there's a new opportunity over there. So your ethical and moral kind of compass also has to kick in. These are people's lives. You know, the money, yes, and all the other societal things, these are people's lives. You're coming, you're starting a process, you're making a commitment to see them through a season or a period or whatever. And then you also have to make that commitment to your clients. You have to make the commitment to your own learning and your own growth. Tolerance means that you're going to work in a very diverse environment. You can't consistently be looking to be offended, because we are all coming from so many, I think in our office there's at least 7 nationalities, right? And consistently being able to be called out, being able to say, oh, sorry, no, that was not offensive, I didn't mean it in that way, or whatever it is. So openness to learning, that ethical and moral compass for yourself, that consideration of being very intentional, what I'm clear, why I'm coming here, because, right, this is what I want to achieve, this is what I want to gain out of this season. Yeah. And when I say tolerance, it means that you will hear the prayers as they go off, right? You will have to respect their standards of dress. We don't care where you come from. For example, when it's Ramadan, you cannot eat in public. You get to, like, it's serious. You get deported. During the day, if everyone is fasting, food outlets are closed. It was a fight to get supermarkets to be open for expats so that I can go and do my groceries during the day. Everything is closed. You can't eat, you
Sure.
can't drink water in public, you must just respect the rules. You live here, you do that, you know. And I'm fighting for my rights. You will be deported. They'll say, go fight for your rights there. So it's that openness, that learning, that tolerance, that ethical and moral campus, and just, yeah.
Wow, wow, wow.
Mm.
I like you can't keep going around looking for to not be offended.
Yeah.
I like that.
Oh, this
Yeah.
one said this to me, so I'm leaving. It's a toxic workplace. Oh, wow. Please,
Wow, wow,
yeah,
wow. Well,
calm
it looks
down.
like you are really enjoying yourself. I don't know if yeah, at least you appreciate the learning that comes with the
All
environment. I
right.
don't know if
Mm,
enjoyment is the word, but you seems to be very much settled in terms of the growth opportunities that are that side.
mm,
Anything else that you feel maybe I've not covered to share with those who are watching about being an EP in a different environment? I wanted to ask you about the issue of the living environment adaptation, but I think you touched them
mm,
when you were answering to some of the questions. But anything else
mm,
that you want to share before we close? And any other psychologists out there who are looking at this and
mm,
they just want to get anything that you have on your side for them to
mm.
consider?
I think supervision is very important, right? So I have a supervisor. I know we decide in South Africa, we say, oh, but I don't really need one, or I kind of like have this person at work and. So having a supervisor is critical because there are things that you will come across that will need you to have a debrief space that is not necessarily work, that is not necessarily um, you telling yourself that you're getting this right because someone always gives you a different way of looking at a problem or a different way of thinking about a problem. So supervision is so critical. Um, it will take you a long way. It has helped me really so much. And please pay for the supervision. It's not for free. It's not asking for favors because it actually is work for someone else. It's supervision will take you a long way. Mm.
Awesome. So when we're speaking about supervision, we're speaking about supervision post your internship, more like a mentorship, so to say.
Supervision. Like, tell me the
Yeah.
case, conceptualize the case for me. What have you thought of? What are you thinking of doing? What has been the challenge? What are your blind sides? Okay, have you looked at this? What is the progress with this case? What else are you looking at? What's happening? What's the challenges that are presenting? So proper full-on supervision, just like we did in university, back to basics, because maybe for me, because I'm in a learning season, but almost so you are consistently in the workplace. You're dealing with a supervisor who's your supervisor in the context of they supervise your work, but then you need supervisor for the content of what you're doing, right? Because that other theory that you learned, that trauma looks like this and trauma looks like that, and then it's staring you in the face, and your supervisor says, but don't you think this is trauma? And why are you so triggered? Why is this an issue for you? Your own introspection, which you don't always discuss with someone from. So
Mm.
very much back to basics, a supervisor that actually does that actively with you.
Okay, I get you. I get you well,
Mm,
well.
mhm.
Linda, thank you so much. I think this
Thank
was very
you.
informative. I
Thank you
really
for
appreciate
honoring
the
me.
time. No, we are the one honored here because I get a lot of questions. I mean, in SA,
Mm,
there's a lot of students, graduates, and professionals, particularly in psychometry, registered counselor, even psychology, who are looking at opportunities elsewhere.
mhm,
So, and I think this is really informative to get an insider info about a different context. We always look at UK and we look for people from that context, and you are coming from a different context that we don't have. But I think this is really helpful. At least, somebody can start with their research from a particular baseline. I think this is what you've given. You've given at least the foundation to start from. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your patience with just setting everything up. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thanks to you. And just maybe a last one before you go. What are the study opportunities that side? If I'm there, am I able to, further study, do PhD, or any other qualification? And are the work environment also open to paying for such things?
Further studies, I have been fortunate to gain a to gain like a bursary. No, it's not a bursary. What's it called? Scholarship. There's a lot of scholarship opportunities, so you just apply and apply and apply. The workplace really just depends, because remember, you can wake up and say I'm leaving, so that investment for the company has to make sense. If they're going to pay it for you. So there is abundant opportunities and things I never thought of studying while I was in South Africa. So, for example, one of the areas that I'm studying is now effective healthcare management, right? And it's very eye-opening. It's from a Canadian university and something that you can always explore and diversify your portfolio. What does that look like in terms of if I was running a clinic of this model within a different context, within the African context, within any other context? What is the world standard? What is needed in terms of the world? Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much. And enjoy Kuwait. And the weather that side, I hear it's weathering.
Oh man. No, you know what? It's
Don't you miss
the
SA?
UK. It's similar to the UK. If it's cold outside, you've got heating inside and all those kind of things. We are in air conditioning consistently when it's summer, and then when it's winter, it's also now winter is starting and it gets super cold. So you also have to adjust to that.
We're about to go to winter now.
Yeah, winter has started because we were in summer. We're in the northern hemisphere, so we got summer and the students get summer break. The kids can't go to school. It's too hot to be in school.
Is it?
It literally is too hot to be in school.
So you guys have got remote learning during summer?
Summer break, just like the UK, just like the US, 3 months off. There's no school.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, let me release you. Linda, thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Definitely.